I'm done with you, Thomas shouted as he stormed out of the room. Panelists, you have no job, and you only finished middle school. I'm not going to keep being married to an elderly woman who contributes nothing. Just pack your stuff and leave. Be grateful I've stayed with you this long. So, what? Are you asking for a divorce? His voice was laced with scorn before he abruptly turned his back on me. Don't ever come back. Do you hear me? Are you that clueless? Should I spell it out? You're not smart enough to get it. Are you planning to divorce me and marry my sister instead? We locked eyes in stunned silence. I'm Edna, in my late 50s, married to Thomas, who's 5 years younger than me. I have a younger sister, Ethel, who went to college with Thomas. In fact, it's because of her that I met him. We have 2 children, both grown and living their own lives now. At my age, I often reflect on the past. So much has happened over the years. I'm proud of my children, but I can't say the same about my marriage. Thomas has belittled me for my lack of education, often mocking me for my junior high school diploma. You wouldn't understand, that's why you only graduated middle school, he'd taunt during our fights. He was right, I didn't finish high school. I always wanted to, but circumstances didn't allow it. We were poor back then, and the world felt small without the internet to broaden my horizons. I followed my parents' wishes, got a job after middle school, and worked hard to support my family. My sister, on the other hand, graduated from college, something I made sure happened, working extra hours to pay for her education. I didn't want her to suffer the way I did. It was hard, but it paid off. Ethel excelled academically and got into a prestigious university. That's where she met Thomas, and they both proudly talked about their shared alma mater. But when we argued, it always came back to his education, as if it made him better than me. When we first met, he was different, charming, thoughtful. I was overjoyed when we married and had our first daughter. It was the happiest time of my life. But as the years went by, that happiness slowly slipped away. Back then, it was common for women to quit their jobs when they got married. I planned to do the same and focus on raising our children, but Thomas didn't want that. He expected me to work full-time while also managing the house and raising our child. Meanwhile, he quit his job when our first son was born, and I assumed he'd take over the housework. But no, that responsibility remained mine. If he doesn't help out, the least he could do is earn money for the family, I thought, worried about how I was going to support 2 kids on my own. 6 months after he quit his job, I finally said, Thomas, it's time for you to find work. Who do you think you're talking to? He snapped. It's been 6 months, and you think you can tell me what to do? I'm not like you. I went to college. I'm someone important. You're lucky I'm even here. But if I want a job, I'll get one. It's my choice, not yours. Well, then pick one, I challenged. He scoffed. I can't. There's nothing I want to do. Thomas may have an impressive degree, but in reality, he had no ambition. Without a job or any contributions to the family, his fancy education was nothing more than a decoration. Then at least do something for this family, I pleaded. What are you, an idiot? It's ridiculous to ask me to do something. You're the one who had the kids. You should be grateful I'm still here. The reason I stayed with Thomas for so long, despite everything, was the stigma of divorce in our generation. Back then, getting divorced meant everyone would turn their backs on you, and the children would suffer the worst of it. But my kids are grown now, and I'm starting to think that maybe it's time to let go. I'm nearing retirement age. A divorce now, at this stage, could actually be the start of something better. I've been quietly studying for my high school equivalency exam, and I passed it recently, something I've never shared with Thomas because I know he'd mock me for it. Then came a day when I received the acceptance letter for my next step, and just then, my sister Ethel called me. Hey, what's going on? Are you home? What's up? I'm coming over, she said casually. Okay, I'll unlock the door for you in 10 minutes. Thanks, see you soon. She hung up. 10 minutes later, Ethel arrived. How's Thomas? She asked. We're divorced, I said, flatly. What? Since when? 6 months ago. I didn't know. I didn't want to tell you, I explained. By the way, do you have a room for me? No, we don't have any extra rooms, I said, hesitating. Yes, you do. The kids are grown up now. You don't need those rooms anymore. But I keep them for when they visit, I replied. Then I'll take the guest room, she insisted. I'll stay here. Wait, this seems a bit sudden, I said. No, it's not, Ethel assured me. I've got permission from my team. That's right, I added. I told her to come over if she ever needed help. As I was processing this, Thomas returned home from the store. Why did you make that decision without consulting me? He barked at me. Your sister. I was inspired by the story of a man in his 70s who, despite his age, set a goal and challenged himself to accomplish it. I was amazed that someone could still pursue their dreams at that stage in life. Hearing that story made me realize that I too could take on a challenge, and when the day arrived for me to retire, I knew it was time to take that leap. I came home from my last day of work to find Thomas and Ethel with strange smiles on their faces. I want to talk to you, Thomas said. What is it? You retired today, right? That means you're unemployed now. How are you going to make a living? You don't even have a real job, and you only graduated from middle school. I'm done with you. You're just an old woman with nothing to offer. Get your stuff and leave. After all these years, I think you should be grateful. Want a divorce? He said, his voice rising as he stormed off. Don't come back. You don't get it, do you? He paused, smirking. You're too dumb to understand. Are you planning to divorce me and marry Ethel? They exchanged glances and started laughing, thinking they had won some kind of victory. You knew, huh? Well, let's make it quick. I don't need you anymore, Thomas continued. If you want to stay, you better get down on your knees. I looked at him calmly. That won't be necessary, I said. I've been planning to divorce you when I retired, so this works for me. I pulled out the divorce papers from my bag. Their faces froze, mouths hanging open in shock. Go ahead, sign it. I'm leaving today. What do you mean you've got the papers? Ethel asked, confused. I've been planning this for a while. I figured if I was going to get a divorce, now was the right time, I explained. I changed out of my work clothes for the last time. Hurry up, let's get this over with, I added, feeling a sense of relief. Isn't it nice that Jen is finally leaving? Thomas reluctantly signed the divorce papers. Fine, whatever, that's done, he muttered in annoyance. I glanced at him, unfazed. You really are a middle school graduate, aren't you? You've got nothing to show for your fancy degree. My daughter, who had overheard, added, You're just a dumb, unemployed old man. You're right, kids, I said, smiling at their honesty, and I've got proof of your affair. That stunned them. I walked out with my children, knowing that they had no money and would soon be facing the consequences. They had to pay me $1 million, shocking them even more. They'd borrowed money from a dangerous lender who lent to people with no jobs. The divorce was finalized, and I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. I was free, finally. I could focus on my studies. I worked part-time as a cleaner while studying diligently. In time, I was accepted into law school, something I had always dreamed of. 4 years later, I graduated and passed the bar exam. I was now a lawyer, just as I had always hoped. My children and their families threw me a small celebration. Life had finally taken a positive turn, but as for Thomas and Ethel, they were still stuck in the mess they had created for themselves. One day, my ex-husband showed up at my new house. Please help me, he begged, his voice shaking. Ethel doesn't work, and we have no money. I went to my kids. They won't be seeing me, I said firmly. Of course not, Mom. What do you mean? You always said you'd be something great, but all you had was your fancy degree. You've done nothing with it. You've been unemployed your whole life. You have nothing now. Don't be stupid. Actually, I just passed the bar exam, I replied, standing tall. What? You passed the bar? Thomas asked, stunned. Yeah, and I work. I used to be a janitor at a law firm, I said proudly. He was speechless. What do you mean you're a private cleaner? Yeah, I clean my own desk now, I said with a smile. I opened the door just enough to show him my lawyer badge. He froze, unable to speak. If you keep following me around, I'll take you to court, I said firmly, slamming the door shut behind me. After that, Thomas never came back. Ethel tried once, but I gave her the same response. They both disappeared. As expected, they had nothing to offer but their education, and it was clear that was no longer enough. I moved on with my life, determined to make the most of my success. Jen's children fully supported her, and I was grateful for that. I hope Jen enjoys a fulfilling life, knowing that with hard work, anything is possible.